Welcome to episode 21 of the Live, Lift, Love podcast, PEDs, Positive and Enriching Discussions. I'm your host, Clifford Janice. Today's episode is titled Discovering Angles. You can find me on IG at Galtz Conditioning. You can find me on Twitter at Galtz Condition. And you can listen to the Live, Lift, Love podcast on SoundCloud, Google Play, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, and YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and if you visit the Live, Lift, Love podcast on the Galtz Conditioner website, please be sure to leave a comment. Back again, kind of just flowing. No specific theme in relation to everything going on, but just, again, kind of sticking to the concept of just finding interesting people to have new dialogue and perspectives with. My guest today is a new friend from maybe within the past 4 or 5 years. I'm going to introduce her now. Hey, Tatiana.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. How's your day been?
It's okay. Working from home today, so it's not too crazy.
How often have you been working from home lately?
So I work from home probably every other week since March. So I'll be on site for work and then off site for a week and then just a back and forth thing.
It sounds like you hate it, but I'll ask you, how do you feel about that?
I feel like I would be more comfortable just completely working from home, at this point because of the global pandemic. But since I can't, I will take what I can get. And it's been, it's not as restful as you would think working from home, at least on my end, because I'm someone that's always physically had to go into a job. But like not having to, put on a mask to get to work is pretty cool. And I can wear house shoes, so.
Or no shoes, right?
Or no shoes.
It's the summertime. Let your feet breathe a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So are they doing that for everyone where you work? Like, do you alternate? Some people are off this week, but then they go in. Not off. Some people go in this week while another group stays home.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's like I have 4 coworkers, and we'll have 3 people on site, and then 2 people are off site, and then every week it'll change until they can figure out what the plan is going to be permanently going forward.
Is there a reason why they do off on? Like, what do you think they're trying to do? Just like condition you to not get too comfortable?
Yes, that. And I think it's a thing where it's like, we don't want you to get too comfortable working from home because that's not what you were hired for. But, you have to go with the flow of, the world. So
what's been the biggest challenge for you working from home?
Biggest challenge working from home is that I was absolutely not prepared at all to work from home. So it was a mad scramble to get a Chromebook, to find a space to work where I can work and not get distracted. But I've never had a job where I've had to work from home. So just making myself my own schedule so that I can stay focused has been the biggest thing. But I feel like I've gotten the hang of it now, but who knows what's going to happen next week? Maybe they'll just be like, no more working from home. Just come directly into the office.
Yeah. Even for me, I've been working from home since 2012. It's sometimes just hit or miss. You just don't have you're just not in the headspace because
yeah, definitely.
Home just, gives you that warm, comforting feeling of just wanting to lay down and do nothing for the whole day. But it's not realistic. We're adults. We got to do stuff for some reason. Right?
I think it would probably be better for me if I actually had a home office. If I had a desk with an actual desktop instead of a Chromebook and that kind of setup, then it would be better. But just sitting on the sofa with a little Chromebook is it could be very distracting. But I'm finally getting a grasp on it.
Good. Mostly because of this pandemic, I feel like I've been working a lot more. So my place has always kind of been the couch in front of the TV. And in the past, I'd have background TV
Hmm.
playing while I worked. But then I just kind of got out of that headspace because a lot of the work I'm doing now requires me to kind of focus and be
Right.
creative and think. And I've just kind of been hopping around. So like sometimes I'll sit out in the balcony, sometimes I'll sit in the bedroom and
Hmm.
just try to not be in a room with the television. And it's helped a lot, honestly. So, who would have thought it would take me all these years to realize
It's
just
the
don't sit
TV.
and right, just don't sit in front of it. Don't be aware of it, and you won't feel you won't have that desire to cave in and not do work.
Yeah, like you're better than me because I'll come in to the living room and I'm like, all right, it's 8:30. What can I put on the TV for background? And I'm like, all right, like guess we'll watch Goosebumps today as I like work on the laptop.
It's a Goosebumps TV show.
Yeah, the Goosebumps. They like the Goosebumps TV show that used to come on when I was like a kid. They put it on Netflix, so I'll just like play it in the back, and
Okay.
it's not particularly that good, but you know, memories.
It's nostalgic. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm thinking about the books now, and the books weren't that good either. But for their time and for that age, it was fun and interesting
yeah,
literature. So I
and
get it.
it really depends too on what book. Like if it was R.L. Stein and it was like the slappy puppet thing, anything that has to do with any kind of like doll coming to life, it has pushed me into like a state of sheer terror. So I won't say they weren't that good, but those books used to scare the hell out of me.
I can't really. I remember the puppet one, and the one book that stands out to me the most. I don't remember it might have been an amusement park book, and I think it was your choose your own adventure. And I think it was the first time I had like a choose your own adventure book where you go left or right in the funhouse mirror, then you jump to like page 86,
Yeah,
and then you do something. Yeah, that's the one book from Goosebumps that stands out to me the most.
they had some like creepy ones with the choose your own adventure. They had the ones where like they were aliens, kids going to camp, ghosts, haunted like theaters, but like all the kids are 12 and it's murdered children, so that scares me always. But yeah, Goosebumps
Murder
is
children.
yeah,
Um,
children that are murdered.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that at all. Wow. Okay.
Maybe dead, maybe not murdered. More
Okay.
like freak accident and then died.
Got it. Yeah. What do you think is the adult equivalent to Goosebumps now? This is
Don't.
just kind of came to mind now. Like it'd be fun to have like a small, easily digestible book series that's just different, or is it just like podcasts that we're kind of consuming now?
I
What do you
think
think?
it's probably I feel like people really still love um Stephen King. So I feel like that's something that is like the equivalent. So like when you're a kid you read R.L. Stein and then you get older and you read Stephen King.
I like that.
And
Yeah.
now it's like it's even cooler now cuz his son writes horror books, Joe Hill, and like, it's kind of the same feeling but it's different. So I would say like Stephen King, like Dean Koontz, Clive Barker, like that's what you read when you've graduated from like Goosebumps to like Fear Street to then you're like, all right, I'm an adult. Apparently I've got to read these adult books. So let's go with like Stephen King.
I don't think I've ever read a Stephen King book.
Not one.
I don't think not one.
I'll compile a list.
Okay. All right. So let's transition into you. So to start, I'd just like to talk about you, your experience growing up, where you're from, and kind of transition into present day.
Okay. I'm all right. So I am 33 years old. I'm from Harlem. I grew up in probably one of the more, probably considered dangerous like projects. I grew up in the Polo Grounds, and I pretty
Oh yeah,
much,
yeah.
yeah. You've heard of the Polo Grounds?
I've heard. I know it all. I
you
know
know,
it all.
you're like, I've heard of the Polo Grounds, which is very
Yeah.
funny because I remember one time telling like this white girl that I worked with at Barnes and Noble, because I used to work at a bookstore, that I was from Polo Grounds, and she was like, "You're from the Polo Grounds?" And I was like, "How did you even hear about this? This is so crazy." But I grew up in the Polo Grounds, and I have one sister. Grew up with my mom and dad. Graduated from Frederick Douglass Academy, and then I did a year at St. John's University where I wanted to major in communication arts. And then I left. I worked for a very long time at Barnes & Noble as a bookseller, and then went back to school because I wanted to do film at City College, and then realized maybe I don't want to do film, and then worked for like nonprofit organizations that, were in place to benefit like young moms, and kind of like spent a long time trying to like figure out what my next steps were, what job did I want, and then ended up working in social work, pretty much being like the person that you go to help you organize a plan for someone that's like very sick and being discharged from a hospital, and actually enjoy it a lot more than I thought I would. And so now I've been doing that for like almost 2 years, and just like trying to maintain like this job, but also be someone that gets to like enjoy my hobbies. So if I'm not at work, then I'm like, let's watch all these horror movies, or let's go for long walks and take pictures, or let's officiate a wedding, because those are the things I enjoy doing. So yeah.
That's dope. I mean, like I said, I've known you for 5 years. Haven't known any of this pretty much.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think I knew any of this really.
Yeah.
So to backtrack real quick, I want to, I guess, kind of focus on growing up in a Polo Grounds. Like, how did you navigate that? I mean, seeing the chaos and being aware of the chaos. How do you survive through that?
So, I mean, for the most part, so like, I always think it's like a very interesting thing to say, like, oh, second generation from the projects, because my parents grew up in those same projects. And so, like, I know a lot of people, sometimes they look at it like, oh, it's really dangerous. It's really dangerous. But when you've grown up around it for such a long time, there's like that sense of community where it doesn't feel like danger to you, because the people. Like, my elementary school was literally on the same street as the Polo Grounds. I went to high school that was 7 blocks away from where I live and where I grew up. My sister went to school 20 blocks away. My parents, they knew the other parents that, because they grew up with them. So it was never really like, oh, this place is so dangerous. But like in hindsight, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that was probably not good. But I mean, when I was like a kid, we were pretty much homebodies. So me and my sister were like window gazers. Like, we looked out the window a lot and made up stories, and we had each other to kind of like hang out with. And it also helped that like my grandma lived in the same building. My cousins lived in another building. My great grandma lived in a different building. My grandpa was down the street. My aunts were always like blocks away. So it's like, it's just one of those things where like your community was always around you. So there was no real sense of like being scared, but like just knowing like, oh, family's over there, friends are over there, like most of my friends from elementary school, they grew up in the Polo Grounds too. And if they didn't, when I was in high school, they still grew up like 7 blocks away. So
yeah, I feel like that's kind of the general misconception about growing up in the projects or in the hood in general. A lot of it going back to the idea of generational, like, if your parents have a good foundation there, then they know all the troublemakers because they watched them grow up and, they, interacted with them. So you get that, I'll say pass, you get that innate pass where, they won't harass you because that's such and such's daughter. Exactly. That's such and such and son. You get that, rather you get that respect, I'd say. You get that respect being someone's child and having family. And even if, you might not be the troublemaker, but your cousin might be wild, so they'd be like, "Hi, let's chill out. That's Steve cousin. Let's chill out." Like affiliation is a lot. Affiliation is a lot in that type of environment.
Affiliation will absolutely keep you safe in the Polo Grounds.
Yeah. And I feel like I grew up in Flatbush in Brooklyn, and I lived on a square block, and surrounding the block was the projects. We were like the outskirts,
right?
So the only time we had problems with other people were from people from the projects when they came to our area or when we went to their area. Like
Exactly.
it's very much just blocked off and blocked area. Like it of course there's tension every now and then,
Right.
but for the most part, like everyone's cool. You know, we'll have our issues amongst each other, but the only real tension is when people come to violate your block and your area.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or try to like disrespect you in some way. But we knew everybody. Our parents knew everybody. Like I said, my cousins were in the next building. I had some like play cousins in the same building. So it was never one of those things where we were like, you know, in fear of anything. And even when, you know, me and my sister would venture out like on other blocks, they catch wind like, where y'all from? They're like, oh, we live in the Polo Grounds. Nobody bothered you.
Right. That name means something. They don't know who you know, right?
Exactly.
So let's jump into St. John's. You said you were planning to do communications major?
Yeah, I wanted to do like media communications, I feel, because I just really in general have like I know a little bit about a lot of stuff. And so like I feel like growing up and watching like commentary on like pop culture, I was like, that's something I want to do. Because I try and keep up with like the movies. I try and keep up with like music. So that's something that I was like, I can do that. So I did that for like a year. And then I was kind of like, I don't think I really like school that much. Like as soon as it became like an option and not something that I had to do, I was more like, is this what I want to do? And it wasn't. So I ended up leaving. But and I didn't live on campus, so the commute from the Polo Grounds to Jamaica Queens,
that's so like 2 hours.
Yep.
3 hours.
3-4 times a week with a 7 a.m. class. I was just like, if I'm going to go back to school, it's got to be like walking distance. And that's what ended up happening. I was like, I live 20 blocks away from City College, so I'll try it there.
Do you feel it was the program and the classes you were taking that kind of made you change your mind, or was it just like the experience, the commute, the classes, just not being interested? Did that kind of dissolve your passion, or was it just like, like you said, I don't like school, I don't like this process, and having a commute makes it even worse. So I'd rather go to school that's close and hate it there than hate it for two hours.
Right, exactly, and it was cheaper because I got a partial scholarship to go to St. John's University, and then it was like on top of that the 2-hour commute, and then I think being so used to knowing everybody around you, and then being pulled out of that kind of environment and kind of like thrown into an entirely new environment where you're absolutely responsible for yourself and like making new friends and trying to like get a grasp on all these like prerequisite classes you have to take before you can really like delve into the stuff you want to know, was like, man, I don't have to do this. So I was like, then I won't do it. So then I like left, because it was like, when school for me became an option and I was like, oh, I don't have to do this. I don't have to sit in a classroom and listen to this man talk about like New York history for an hour, because I already know this stuff and it also does not interest me. Like, I get how it's supposed to like lay the foundation for your education, but it was just not for me.
Totally get that that feeling and experience. I mean, when I was a kid, my only focus was being a dentist. I went to dental hygiene school in Bridgeport for 2 years. And then when I left, I was like, this is boring. This isn't boring. Like my innate base is kind of like communicating and talking to people.
Right.
And I wanted to find something that would allow me to help people. And dentistry in its own right helps people. You help people have a beautiful smile. You
right.
help them have a healthy mouth, which is pivotal, important in life.
Mm-hmm.
But the lack of communication when it comes to the actual work, because your hand's in their mouth majority of the time,
right.
I was like, this is boring, and I'm not good at math, I'm not good at science, so I'm not gonna force myself to study hard if I know I'm already bad at it.
Right.
It's gonna change majors.
Yeah.
Right. Be realistic with who I am.
Right. Like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to step away from it. Because I had,
Right,
like,
right.
when I was in high school, I had teachers that said, I had one specific teacher that would be like, Tatiana, I think that you should go to Hunter College and I think you need to major in chemistry. And I was like, why? Why do you think that? And there was no reason, really, because I took advanced placement chemistry, but not because I wanted to, it's because I had to. And it's like, don't push me to do a thing because you see, because it makes sense to you. Like, push me in a direction where you can see like the potential in me to do better in that. But it wasn't that. It was just like, I like chemistry, so you should also like chemistry. I don't.
Right. And probably also, you're a young Black woman in chemistry. Black people need more representation.
Right.
And yes, in every right, but be realistic in terms of options. Don't just
Right.
say you should do this because you're good at this and that'll be your end all.
Yeah.
No, it's not realistic for life and personal growth.
I feel like, especially if you're not, really passionate about chemistry, should you get into it, there's certain things I feel like you should be passionate about before you get into it. And I think chemistry might be one of those things.
Definitely could see that. I think most of the sciences, like I like science and math on a process level. Like
Right.
I enjoy lab classes. I enjoy looking at microscopes. I don't want to be tested on it. I don't care about the cell wall or cell summary. I
Right.
don't care about that. I just want to look at cool stuff and learn cool information and be like, all right, cool. I learned that. I know more about the human body.
Right.
On with life. I don't want to be tested. I don't want to be graded on it.
Exactly. I don't want to have to constantly explain like why I know so much about the Rutherford's gold experiment, because I don't like the Rutherford's gold experiment. Just let's talk about something else. Like,
Can you explain the Rutherford's gold experiment? Because I've never heard about that, or at least I don't remember.
I can barely describe it for you. It's something with shooting rays directly at gold and realizing that these lasers or these rays could penetrate gold or could not penetrate gold. And I just remember constantly have to talk about it from like grade 10 to 12. And I was just kind of like, I'm over Rutherford, I'm over gold.
I'm over Rutherford. I like that. All right. So let's fast forward. You go to City College for film.
I go
What's
for
that?
film.
What's that experience like for you?
So it's another experience where it's like, hey, Tatiana, before you really delve into this film, you need to do these prerequisites. So we're going to have you do music class. We're going to have you do quilting. And it's like, what does quilting have to do with film? And they were fun classes, but it's just like, I feel like I don't grasp or like learn as well as I thought I did in a classroom. I feel like with something like film, it needs to be like hands on. I need to be constantly, talking about it, watching it, like learning, like
Like
being
Dawson's Creek,
critical.
right?
Exactly
Yeah.
like Dawson, but less pretentious, because he was so pretentious. What a terrible character.
The Live, Lift, Love podcast is brought to you by the Black Excellence Shop. Shop our Black Excellence calendar and journal bundle, 366 days of creativity, motivation, and spirituality. And shop our Black Excellence Daily app for Android and iOS, blackexcellencedaily.com. Yes, so what was the purpose of quilting? And they chose your prerequisites for you?
I won't even lie to you and say that, I chose the class or anything like that. It was literally, I waited too long because I just waited too long. And then it was like, what classes are left that I have to sign up for? And quilting was one. It was like a double class where with one class, you're literally in a classroom learning about the history of quilting. And then in the second class, there was like this quilting woman who was like known for her quilting, who taught us how to quilt. And so we learned how to quilt. And then there was, how many people were in the class? Maybe like 10 people in the class. We learned how to quilt. And then they take the quilt that we made and they hang it up in a museum in Harlem. And it was strange. It was an informative class, but I didn't want to be in it.
So is your part of the quilt still in a museum in Harlem?
It might be. It's been
That
some time
that's
since
dope though. Do you
it's
remember what you quilted?
um something like, the Lakers colors, I'm pretty sure was like purple and gold.
Okay.
Not specifically because of the Lakers. I just remember a lot of purple and gold, and it was like 11 years ago, and I don't remember what museum. It was a very small museum in Harlem near like 125th Street. But I'm sure it's probably still there. It was a beautiful quilt. I wish I had
Just
pictures.
just the process of getting to that point wasn't really worth it.
It taught me patience.
Okay.
It taught me a lot of patience.
Do you know how to quilt now?
I do know how to quilt now. It also taught me that no matter, I feel like sometimes I'm a bit of a procrastinator, that you can't procrastinate quilting. You can't have a quilting class and think that you're going to, quilt a little bit before class and your teacher won't notice. She'll notice. She'll know.
Yeah. You wait too long. Winter's here, and now you're cold, and that's
Exactly,
not right.
you're cold. Or if she's like, each one of you has to do like we have to do a patch. You can't just make a patch before class. You just can't do it. Especially as a novice, you're just learning.
Right.
You think you're gonna walk into a classroom with a patch that you made? Like, here's my patch. She's gonna know. She knows.
She should know, right? She better know. She's a professional.
She
Right?
better know.
So what was some of the nonprofit work you were doing? You said you were doing it to assist young moms.
Yeah, I worked.
What type of capacity?
I worked while I was still working at Barnes and Noble. I decided that I no longer wanted to do that, and I felt like I could get into working in maybe a nonprofit that benefited like young Black women. And I did it through a program which was more like an apprenticeship, and worked. It was called Brooklyn Young Mothers Collective. I'm not sure if they're still around, but I worked there as a program associate, where I pretty much counseled girls, tried to find any sort of like service or program that could benefit them, so that it just in general made their lives easier. Even if it was just like, oh, I found these jobs, always having like job applications on hand, always, doing workshops, providing them with any kind of service. We take donations from people in the neighborhood, and if they had like baby stuff or toys, so that if these girls didn't have that stuff or they needed some kind of support system, they could always just like walk in to the program and come in and talk. And it served girls from ages 12 to 21, predominantly girls in the foster care system, and just trying to get them as much support as possible to make life easier any way, shape, or form. And I did that for maybe a year and a half, and it was like one of my favorite jobs I've ever had, because there was just like so many girls that all they need is like support, like a good support system to just do better. And that program helped to give them that. So
Right, it's what we all kind of need, right?
Yeah.
We all need resources. We all need guidance.
Exactly.
We all need support, and the awareness that someone cares and someone's going to look out for us when we're down and out.
Right, exactly.
So is that? Do you feel like that's kind of your calling, of being a resource for people? Because now you said you're doing social work currently. So do you feel like this is innately who you are? You want to be that go-to person. You want to be that resource. You want to support people who, I guess maybe are disenfranchised or who don't have, some of the luxuries so many of us do have.
Yeah, I feel like as long as I've, had the capacity to like hold down a job, the thing that I'm best at is working in support services and providing resources, or helping somebody make like a safe plan so that they could, leave the hospital and not worry about like follow-up appointments, or just having any kind of plan, any kind of resource to just make everything just even if it's just a tiny bit easier for them, because there's so many like constraints when it comes to just like navigating the world. And if you don't know people and you don't know like the right people, sometimes those resources can like pass you by and you don't even know. So yeah, that's definitely like, I don't know. I've always really liked helping people in general, even if it's just, I don't know, kindness goes like a very long way. And I feel like people don't realize that.
And what do you think that comes from? Parental conditioning, or still haven't discovered or you still haven't discovered the root of it?
Of like kindness going a long way.
Yeah, that philosophy, living by that philosophy and just wanting to, again, innately support people.
I think it's definitely one of those things where like some people have a mentality where it's like you have to watch out for yourself. So extending like that kind of kindness to other people or caring about other people becomes one of those things where it's seen as a weakness. I feel like people don't have enough empathy. I feel like I don't know. I just, especially after like, the whole pandemic and going through this whole pandemic, seeing like people come together and provide each other with like mutual aid. Like, what if that was like on a grander scale where people had more faith in community rather than like, I only care about me and mine. Like, what if you extended that like kindness, that courtesy, if you were more empathetic? I feel like just in general, things would be a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked. Me and my co-host Shadi talked about compassion in the last episode, and granted, we looked at it on a larger scale in terms of just ideologies, but focusing on just the basic human level of just making sure that every interaction is mutually beneficial. Like
Right.
we're all here for each other in some type of capacity. We all interact. We don't all, but anyone you interact with, there's a barter system going on. There's an exchange going on.
Right.
So having the awareness, like for me, it's always been the first step. Is having the awareness that we're all here for each other, and then like, what can I do to implement that? What can I do to be part of the solution outside of all the problems that are just kind of ever present? And yeah, definitely. I mean, seeing the amount of just communal work and support these past few months has been like dope. Just like
it really has.
It's so many people just and these are they can transform into nonprofits and so many other different aspects. But just the idea of seeing I guess our generation, the millennials, this kind of galvanize and work to get things going to support each other. Like
right.
As much of a bad rap as we've gotten, these past few months show that, given the resources and given the freedom to kind of just live our lives the way we want to, we're willing to be part of the system, but We're also willing to support each other, which is what we expect from the people, the figureheads we kind of put into office.
Right.
We're doing the work, but no one else is.
Right. And I feel like, millennials get a bad rap because I feel like, there's at some point where you just kind of like, you pass the baton and then like it gets passed to millennials, and then we already started off pretty bad. And I feel like people from older generations sometimes think that like, empathy is like this weakness thing, and like wanting a better world is a weakness thing. And I feel if, with even when you talk about like the community fridges or the mutual aids and like donating to, so people can to bail funds, like that's great, but we also want, the government to do the same thing for us as well. Like these systems are in place and they need to be fixed, and we can only do so much, but if you don't have like the cooperation of the people that have the power, then it makes it really hard. I think I mean, I know millennials get a bad rap. I've heard people say like, oh, these millennials this and these millennials that, but like it's great to see the kind of work people are doing to make sure that people don't go hungry, or like the amount of people that are like out in the streets protesting nonstop since March. Like a day has not gone by where someone's not like out in the street, protesting. And I think that people really need to realize that, like this generation is they're doing a lot to make things better for people.
Right. Especially, in response to going back to what you said about, we started behind, right?
Yeah,
We the system was crumbling before we became of age.
exactly.
We just inherited it, right? We inherited the debt, and it's very, for me, I know it's very layered and there's different aspects. Um, and even within it, I still personally believe in the individual, and like, what can I do? I know it sucks, but what can I do just to kind of get by?
Right.
And granted, it's exhausting. Getting by, trying to make it these days is exhausting,
It
right? Like I
it
see,
truly is.
like you could like I consider the social media, rather, and just the idea of YouTube and content. Oh, everyday content, everyday content. You always got to be out there. You always got to put a smile on. You always got to keep pushing this content out. And so many of millennials and people within our generation, younger than us, that we're going through it, especially in the mental health aspect. But
Exactly.
there's still expectation to perform,
Right.
and it still feels like even though you're not traditionally working in the system,
Hmm.
you're still part of it. You
Exactly.
just fine tuned it to gain a little independence.
Right.
Yeah.
We'd already dealt with like one recession. We're going through another recession. Our parents were probably able to, or their parents were probably able to like buy a house or take some college courses and not worry about like the immense amount of debt that comes with that. And now it's like, it's just not the same for us, So people just, millennials get a bad rap. We're trying. We really are.
Now, I was just thinking about, like, my parents come from Haiti, so I'm first generation American,
Hmm.
and thinking about the idea of them coming here, not going to college, so they don't have college debt, but being able to kind of thrive in the late 70s and 80s and kind
Hmm.
of build and establish for themselves to the point where, they're in a good place, where I feel like a lot of people who immigrated during that time frame are kind of in a good place overall.
Yeah.
And I get um I fall in line with the American dream, right? Like I'm born here, so like now I become part of the system that takes on all the troubles that they necessarily didn't have to deal with.
Right.
Uh, I don't know. This is a new thought. I need to think about dive into that a bit more.
About the American dream.
That, and I guess being the first generation to have to take on the troubles of what this country is, because my parents didn't have to do that since they
Right.
weren't born here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, let's dive into discovering angles.
Discovering angle.
Angles. When did you realize your initial passion for photography?
I don't know. It's so strange because I was thinking about this for like the last week. Like when did I realize how much I liked photography? And I feel like it's one of those things that I kind of like fell in and out of love with. Growing up, my grandma had this boyfriend named Larry, and she was with him for a very long time. And Larry loved photography, like he loved it so much, and he always included me and my sister in that. And so, like, we would go visit him in his house in the Bronx, and like his entire basement, like his walls were completely covered in like portraits of every person he had come across. Like he carried his camera around, he took pictures of them, and he loved it. And I think one time I went to his house and we were like looking at the newer pictures he put up, and he had like a picture of my cousin on my dad's side, and my grandma's was from my mom's side, and I'm like, that's my cousin. How do you know her? And he's like, that's it was like his son's girlfriend's daughter, and I was like, that is my cousin Cheyenne. This is crazy.
That's dope.
It was really funny. But I think like seeing like the care he took with taking pictures of people he knows has always been something that kind of like inspired me to want to take pictures. I When I was a kid, like my mom and dad would buy me like the throwaway cameras, like the instant cameras. You take the pictures, you get them developed, and that's it. And realizing about maybe when I was like 24, 25, just the amount of pictures that I would have to go through, like having physical copies of it. And then thinking to myself, like, oh, I actually really enjoy doing this thing a lot. Like, what are the next steps in, you know, enjoying it, Because for me, it was like, what are the next steps in this, like, hobby that I like? And it was making people pose for photos. So it's like, let me take a picture of you. Let me take a picture of you. Let me take a picture of you. And being like the designated photographer for any like friend group that I was in is like, I don't know. It just feels like you like documenting good times or documenting
Life.
life. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And like in the last few years, because especially like 2 or 3 years ago, I was having like a really tough time with life, going through like a breakup, having to like move back home, and then thinking to myself, like, what are some things that, always like made me happy or I was happy doing it? And it was photography. And then like looking through pictures that I've taken over the last 8 years from just saved on like Google Drive or Google Photos or whatever, and noticing like, oh, this is something that I really enjoy doing. So I was like, it's time for me to kind of like hold myself accountable for the things that I enjoy doing and pushing myself to do that thing more. What should I do? And I bought a camera. I bought an Instant camera first. I bought an Instax camera. And then I was like, every time I come across a friend, anytime I'm having a good time, anytime someone looks like has like a moment of like happiness, I'm going to take a picture. So that's what I started to do. I started to like just carry my Instax camera with me everywhere. And then it was, all right, I'm going to get a new phone, but in order for this to be the new phone that I like, it's got to have a good camera. So then it was like, all right, now I have a phone that has a good camera. And it wasn't enough for me to just like post it on like my regular social media. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to make a separate page to just post my photography. Let me see if I can get people to like, follow it, or I can get people to agree to like go on walks and stuff so that I can take pictures of them. And then they did that. And then I was like, okay, what can I do now? And it's like, what if you had a website and you put like what you think is your best work on that website? And so then I did that. And like, I don't know, it's been at least for the last like 2 or 3 years, something that's like so fulfilling to me and so fun for me to do that I can't believe that I waited so long to like really like take it and like run with it. So it's just been a lot of fun, and it's cool because I have like the support of like friends, I have the support of family, I have support of like even other, photographers that I respect telling me like, oh, like I love what you've been doing, or your stuff is really great. And it feels good. So I'm just gonna keep doing it because it's like the one thing that I've done that I haven't gotten tired of.
The way you describe the process makes it sound simple. And I think the reality is that overall, and I don't mean simple in terms of anyone can do it, but just in terms of these are the steps I need to take and these are the steps I'm going to take. And I feel like that's what all level of creativity should be, right? It's like, you have that awareness, like, what's one thing that keeps me sane and makes me feel good? And you went back to your childhood, and I feel like a lot of people, like a lot of the things we truly love or truly should be doing in life, we can just look back at childhood and find that base, and this kind of transition it into, like you said, hobbies and new passions. You started with instant camera, right? And you went into a phone camera, and now you have what kind of camera do you have now?
I have like an Olympus Mark camera. It's also just really strange because whenever anyone asks me like, what kind of camera do you have? I'm like, because it's like, to me, it's a good camera. It's a light camera. It's something I'm going to not regret grabbing and like taking it with me, but it's like an Olympus Mark II. And it's like a good light camera.
Right.
But also like just using my cell phone sometimes catches things that I feel like my actual camera wouldn't catch, and vice versa.
And so now you have just have a book bag full of random cameras. You got your phone, you got your instant camera, you got your Olympus camera, and that's what it is. That's what it should be, right? It's because I feel like part of it's still kind of connecting with the what got you there initially. So like the instant camera kind of birthed you onto this path. So some moments you just want that instant feel, and that instant filter.
Right.
I totally get that. That's dope. So what's been your process in terms of, I guess, capturing photos? You talked about, I guess, mostly looking for people or walking with friends or family members and looking for good moments.
Yeah.
Do you balance that out with bad moments, or are you just looking for any type of moments? I guess mostly related to when you take photos of portraits of actual people.
When it comes to taking photos of people, like when I first, right before the pandemic started, I was like, all right, I made this page. I'm going to just ask people, does anybody want to go for a walk? And it's like people I know, people who want pictures and then just run with that idea. But then, COVID happened, so it was harder to do that. But like generally speaking, when I'm taking portraits, it's just like, I feel like I try and pick times where people seem the most at ease, the most like comfortable. Like even if it's a moment where you just have just a small moment of happiness or a smile or anything like that, it's when I'm like, can I just take a quick picture? Is that okay if I take a quick picture? Because then it's just, I hold on to it and I'm just like, this picture came out really good. This person looks so happy. Like I just like to catch people when they feel good.
Why do you think that is?
Because, happiness can sometimes be like very fleeting, and sometimes, I think it's easier if you can like look at a picture and go, oh, I remember when I took this, or I remember what we were talking about when I took that photo, or like what happened that day that made them look like that. Or it's just like being able to pull up that memory when seeing the photo.
Do you have any photos, or like, do you have a secret folder of non-happy moments, of like rough moments, or people when they're down and out?
I don't. I feel like sometimes like sadness is so personal to people that it's not something I want to share about them. I want to share the moment where they felt like there wasn't sadness, or they had a glimpse of happiness within that sadness, instead of like catching that moment. I also feel like I photograph people better depending on the relationship. And it's like a weird thing to say, but it's like knowing somebody on a like more personal level. I feel like I know like their angle or what's going on, like maybe in their head a little bit, and it makes it easier. But sadness, I'm not so keen on capturing. I'd rather see people like happy or like lovely. Like I want to see people being lovely or in love or
I like the idea of that.
Yeah.
I guess it's maybe just my pessimism. That's like, I like sadness. Sadness is comforting, so I want to see other people within that realm. But I get it.
I think sadness is comforting too, but I feel like I'm more willing to capture my own sadness from like a self-portrait kind of angle than anyone else's. Because in that way, like I can measure that about how far I've come, or a reminder of that things, they get better. Because, sadness can also be fleeting, but like capturing others.
Could be, right?
Yeah. But I think I don't want to capture anyone else's sadness, because it's like, I feel like sometimes it's so personal. But maybe that is something that I should think about trying to capture, Like right now, I feel like I've been doing a lot of like just the city. Just like I'm in the Bronx, I'm going to take pictures of the Bronx. I'm in Brooklyn, I'm going to take pictures of Brooklyn. Like Brooklyn specifically, like things about Brooklyn that I think are beautiful, things about the Bronx that I think are beautiful. And I like doing that, but portraits are always the thing that I feel make me feel good about taking pictures.
So you said you take sad portraits of yourself. Do you take more lovely portraits of yourself also?
I do. I try
Okay.
to. Like I try and have that balance. It's weird now, because we're like there's so much civil unrest and there's a pandemic and the news is constantly just throwing things at you. But, I haven't had a ton of sad days in the last few months. So most of the portraits I've taken of myself have been me at like rest or me after, like doing a bunch of self care. So it's like, this is what I look like after I take the time to take care of myself. If I like wash my hair and like grease my scalp and I feel like free and like accomplished, I'm going, all right, I'm going to take a nice, picture of myself and see if I like it. But yeah, like I feel like some sad photos, not, making myself sad, but that's something that I didn't really consider. But now, like, you bringing it up makes me consider, like, is that something that I might want to do for myself more?
All right. Have you, or maybe even I guess prior to COVID, since it might be weird now, have you taken photos of strangers, or let's ask random people like, hey, can I get a photo of you guys?
That is my next big thing I want to do. When things are a little bit safer and people are less cautious, is to jump over that next one, which is talking to people I don't know and saying, hey, can I take a photo of you? And seeing, how that works. Because I've had people ask me that. Like, I've been standing somewhere who's, can I take a picture? And I go, okay. Because to me, it's not a big deal. For I know some people, it might be like, I'm more private. I don't want that. But that's my next frontier. I feel like every time I get wrapped up in ideas, but that's my next frontier is to ask strangers if I can take their photos.
Are you extroverted? I don't know. I'm not sure. I guess me processing and trying to understand you. Part of me feels like you're extroverted sometimes, and part of me feel like you're introverted. So, but how do you see yourself, or how are you actually?
I don't know. I've never been someone that think that I'm like very extroverted or very introverted. I feel like I've processed things. I process things in a way that's like just me, and then bring it to like a wider audience. But I feel like I'm extroverted, depending. Like I'm around my friends and stuff. Like that's easy. It's like Tatiana just doing a Tatiana stuff. But like on a bigger scale, like it's something that I have to work at. Like the comfort level changes depending on the people.
Right,
But I don't know if
absolutely.
that falls into introvert or extrovert. Because I don't have a problem sharing, but I just don't want to share with everybody.
Yeah, of course. So outside of portraits and people, what catches your eye? Like you were talking about taking photos of Brooklyn, taking photos of the Bronx. How do you? I guess what's your process when it comes to just the world? Architecture, buildings, the sky.
Like I think that's why my whole tagline, even for my website, is discovering angles. Is I like taking pictures of architecture. I like taking pictures of what New York looks like how big the buildings are, how small the buildings are, like what they look like in sunlight as opposed to what they look like in the dark. And now, especially now, since it's more, you can't really do indoor stuff. Like my boyfriend Robert's been like a person that's like, you know what? Let's plan a park sit. Let's plan it in Brooklyn. Let's plan it in Manhattan. Let's plan it in the Bronx. Let's plan it in Queens. And like we just go to wherever we are, especially if it's a park, because I just love parks, and just take as many pictures of, like as I can of like parks and especially bridges. And now like I just want to just take pictures of every lighthouse I see. But like more so now, just like nature before it gets cold, like what the city looks like before fall. So like I went to the botanical gardens last week and I was like, this is the best. This is the best. And just taking as many pictures as possible and just, I don't know, it's just like me capturing the things I enjoy while I'm like there enjoying it and then going back and going like, I was at the botanical garden for the first time ever and I saw this really big tree. And then just like having that story to go with the photo or the picture.
I like that. I like that. So what's your post photography process like? You know, you've taken a bunch of pictures. Are you on the train home going through them, or do you go home and you sit through and like this doesn't make the cut? This is a maybe. What's that experience like for you?
For me, I'll take like 15 pictures of the same thing. And then I'm like, did the lighting look okay? And did it look better when I took it with my phone, or did it look better when I took it with my camera? And then I like narrow it down to maybe like 3 or 4 pictures that I really like. And then I get like a second opinion. So I'll be like, hey, boyfriend Robert, how does this picture look? And he goes, you know what? I like this one. And then I go, do I like this one? And maybe I don't. And then I pick something else. But it's more like narrowing it down and then sort of asking an opinion and then figuring it out from there. But yeah, train ride home, I'm definitely like, all right, I took 12 pictures of this tree. Which one does the tree look the most beautiful in? And then like I'll pick that one, or maybe the one that looks the silliest, or the lighting was not as good as I wanted, but I still like the picture, even though the lighting in another picture was better. It's just like, I feel like at the end, like, which one did I like better? Like the opinions help, but at the end, it's just like, which one makes me feel nice about, you know, sharing it? And then that's really the process. But I do just like sit and go through everything. Photo.
Right. Yeah, you have to, right? You have to. That's part of the art and the creative process behind, you know, crafting and fine tuning your skills, right? Making sure your eye adjusts to, I guess, the reality and desires and what you want people, what you want to be represented in the photos you show.
Right. And then I also do this thing where sometimes, you know, I'll go through like 200 pictures and be like, all right, I didn't really like anything. And then I'll just, you know, not think about those pictures for a little bit. And then I'll find myself having some free time, go through the exact same pictures and find like 15 gems that I was like, oh, this is pretty good. And then I'm like, all right, I just got to give it some time. I think sometimes you have to like kind of distance yourself from what you were looking at and then come back and be like, oh, all right, this is pretty good. This is good.
Perspective, energy, mental focus, like, you know, that, you know, it's like, I had having this conversation a few weeks ago with a friend, idea of like writing a letter to someone, right? Like you write it in the moment and you don't just send it out. You step back and then you kind of go through it and you find new perspectives and new ways to feel about everything.
Yeah.
You know, you need that buffer period sometimes.
Yeah, you need like the buffer period, exactly, where you're just like, you know, all right, I took 200 photos and all in with garbage. And then you wait a couple of weeks and then you're like, you know what, let me take another look. And it's like, all right, you sifted through the garbage and you found some diamonds.
So how do you, I'm trying to find the best way to phrase this. How do you decide? I guess my question is more so based on, I guess the moment of inspiration, like seeing something that you've seen for the first time and deciding this isn't worthy of a photo versus I fucks with this.
All right. So, okay, I got a good example. So today I'm looking through some old photos that I took, and sometimes you have you know, like a Pixel phone. Sometimes you could just do a search for anything random, and then they'll give you like a bunch of pictures that they think relate to the word. So today I'm like,
I've never done that.
You should.
I don't. All of that stuff terrifies me because it feels too intrusive. I know it's just technology and
Yeah.
it's
No, I
okay.
get
It just
it.
feels too intrusive.
So, but this is what I did because it's not like I won't be like, I'll be like portrait, right? I'll type in portrait, right? And then it'll show me what they think are the, portraits. So then I'll just do that. Most of the time, it's just like things I took in portrait mode. So then today, I'm looking through the photos, and then I come across this picture I took of like a pigeon, and I'm like, wow, this pigeon looks amazing. But I took it like in February, and it's just like, okay, this pigeon looks beautiful. I think I want to share this with people. And then I just shared it. I was like, this looks like a pigeon, and a beautiful pigeon at that. So I'll just share it. And so I shared it, and then this photographer I follow from the Bronx saw the photo, and he's like, "This is a great shot." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. We're on the same page. This pigeon's really doing its thing." But Clifford, I feel like you should do that. You should just Google some random words in your Google Photos, and you never know. You might find some stuff that you forgot about.
I'm 95% sure that I would never do that. I would never do that.
You should just like sometimes I'll just go, all right, let me Google food. And then it'll show me like pictures I took of some food, and I'm like, wow, those stuffed peppers that I made 4 months ago look delicious. And then I just make stuffed peppers again. But like it's really not as scary as it sounds if you're just looking through your own photos on your phone. Like it just shows you what it thinks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm old. Like I'm an old person, so like although I understand technology very much, certain things just freak me out and creep me out. Like Instagram.
Yeah.
For example, there's I don't remember what happened. Maybe it was a bug or something, but I went on Instagram and I was scrolling, and it was a white screen where a picture should be, and there was text describing what was in the picture. And then I refreshed, and then the photo came. So
that does sound like a weird glitch.
Right. But it made me realize that's what happens with all photos now. Like every photo now has some information related to what's in it. That's how AI works nowadays. That's how reverse searches work. And I don't like the future implications. I think that's more of my concern.
Yeah.
I understand what it is now, but I don't like the future implications for how intrusive it will be. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to participate and allow the phone to learn me. I mean, your phone is AI. I mean, everything is AI realistically, right? Yeah. I don't want the phone to learn me and think it can figure things out. That freaks me out.
Yeah,
I think that's a problem. I'm a paranoid person. I've seen Terminator, right? I know it's coming.
No, yeah, definitely. It makes sense. I mean, I still encourage you to do it like one time just to see. And if it's bad, then you're like, you know what? Throw the whole phone away.
I'll do it one time. I'll think of something very basic and simple, and I'll do it once to see what the experience is like. Yeah. And if I hate it, I'll never do it again. And if I like it, I still probably won't
do it again.
I'd rather just create my own folders and manage everything. Like I have my Google Drive connected to my MacBook and my phone, so I can just shuffle a lot easier. I don't know. My mindset is always that the less I interact and the less the less I willingly participate in certain aspects of technology, the more I feel off the grid. Yeah. And it could be bullshit, but these are the lies I tell myself.
I mean, that doesn't sound like a bad idea. I know people who do that. They're like, they want to be as off the grid as possible when it comes to technology. So they buy what is it called?
Like VPN.
Yeah, buy VPN and like tape up their phone cameras and only use Signal and don't have like a Facebook, don't have any kind of social media. So, makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah. But you still participate in. So I mean, there's no real escape. The reality is that there's no escape. Like, you're being tracked, you're being watched. Everything you type and write is being recorded and stored. There's a file with you. There's a file on you somewhere with everything you've ever done throughout your whole existence. It's just the reality, right? Just
Yeah,
don't do anything too crazy where they use it as leverage, right? I think
exactly.
that's the point of life.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like don't murder anybody and do all the legal things,
Right.
On the phone.
So, what's currently inspiring you outside of the portraits, outside of and I guess maybe this is more so related to, I guess, the architecture. Yeah. Let's focus on that. Like, what inspires you about architecture? What inspires you about the buildings, the size? What draws you to want to take pictures of those?
They're so big. That's really it. Like buildings are so enormous, especially the further you get into Manhattan. It's just like these buildings are so humongous, and like sometimes they can be a bit of an eyesore when you see how like overdeveloped the city has become over the years. But then some of them are so like beautiful and massive. Sometimes I don't consider size when it comes to like buildings and like animals and stuff. So you literally constantly finding myself surprised at how much like elephants weigh or how tall buildings are and being like, what? But yeah, that's it. Like just being next to something so massive and catching like being able to capture the whole building or what I saw of the building and I thought was beautiful at like, a specific angle to me is like really great. Like if I can take a picture of the entire Brooklyn Bridge from like my camera and people can see what I saw at that moment where I was like, this is like the most beautiful thing I've seen, then I'm like, this is what I want.
What is it about the size that inspires you or draws you, and just the relativeness to like our size as humans, or
Yeah.
that someone built it? Like, are there what layers are there for you?
It's just like Clifford, honestly, I just can't, like in my head I can't fathom how massive things are. And it really is that, and being able to capture an entire massive thing in one photo is like incredible. Like
What's the
that's
biggest thing you've captured in a photo
probably
in its entirety?
in its entirety. Probably the Brooklyn Bridge. Probably the Brooklyn Bridge, I feel. Like it's something so big that I'm like, I cannot believe how big this bridge is. I just walked across this bridge. Now I'm on another bridge looking at that bridge, and I took an entire picture of that bridge. Like that, and anytime I can get like a really good picture of, like it's always me holding the camera looking up at how big a building is and going like, I got the majority of this ginormous building into this photo, and now everyone can experience it as a whole without feeling like cheated from not being able to see the whole thing. I just want to be able to let people see the things that I saw like in its entirety.
And the tiny things, no interest. They can get their own camera and take pictures of us, right?
Yeah, if you're, tiny things, worry about yourself, tiny things. No, I've tried to take pictures of tiny things and, like I never thought about it like this intensely about like why I haven't taken pictures of small things. Maybe it's because I'm such a tall person and such a big person that like things bigger than me, I'm like, whoa. But like I've, been in, so it's like, wow, look at this beautiful flower. And that's it about it. Like I would rather take a picture of all the flowers instead of just like this particular flower. Like I like the bigger picture.
I get that. I feel like it. Go ahead, sorry.
And being able to see like all the details of a photo rather than just the focus on the one thing. Usually only when it's a portrait do I really think about that. But
and I feel like it gives the viewer more, I guess, options to kind of experience the photo and there's different aspects. If you're focusing on just the one flower, it's just like, all right, here's this flower. But if you're doing this massive building, it's like, all right, well, who's on the 30th floor? And, you're
Right.
looking at the sunlight, you're looking at the clouds hitting it. There's so much more detail. I
Yeah.
get that. Yeah, yeah. I like that.
And even, even ugly buildings are so like magnificent.
What's an ugly building in New York that most people might know?
Oh, ugly building, ugly building, ugly
Do you like the
building.
Flatiron building?
I don't think the Flatiron building is ugly.
Okay.
It's very odd shaped. I'd like to take a picture. I've never taken a picture of the Flatiron building. I should probably go and do that. But what's an ugly building? There's like a building I can see right now that's pretty ugly.
Okay.
From the window in the Bronx.
What kind of building is it?
It's just like there's a residential building, and it's two different colors, and it's right by the train station, and it's pretty ugly. But if I went downstairs and took a picture of it from, the ground up, it probably wouldn't look that bad.
Perspective, right? Like
Perspective. Perspective.
If you could be dropped off in any city in the world and spend a day taking pictures, what city would it be?
I would 100% go back to Denver.
Really?
Yes.
In the world?
You know what? Now that you say in the world. You know what? I'll say Denver, but like a close second is I went to Athens, and I thought Athens was great. And if I could, I would go back to Athens and just like do it all over again and see more. I was there for like 10 days, and I feel like that wasn't enough time. And I would love to go back to Athens just because Athens is such an old like place. And some parts of Athens are still very, very old. And like other parts of Athens are just very, very new. And seeing like graffiti near like some old church is just so crazy to me.
Did you go to Athens recently while you started in your photography journey, or was it before?
I went to Athens in 2018, but at that point I didn't have like a great camera. But I took a ton of pictures, and it was just in general like a very great experience. Like my first day there, I like hiked up a mountain, and there was like a church on a mountain, and it was just like very, very beautiful. And I think I was more in the moment of just like enjoying the trip, that I didn't take as many photos as I would have normally. But I think sometimes that's okay. Like it's okay to, like have a moment where something's so beautiful that maybe a picture wouldn't do it justice. To just like have that personal, private moment. I would do that again. That was great. That was one of the greatest times in my life.
Do you ever think about the disconnect that the camera creates at times?
Yes.
Okay. So say more.
There's just some things cameras can't capture. And it's always that. I think that's why when I do try and take portraits, it's like trying to capture, like I said before, like that happiness, that moment of like loveliness. But there's just some moments that are like probably like you can't catch it because you shouldn't. Like it's too beautiful. It's an experience that you should have privately and like love that moment, and then just have that moment, and the only proof you have is how it made you feel, and that's okay.
I love that. Do you find yourself becoming more aware? Like let's say you head back to Athens, you come up the mountain, and you have that experience, and you're like, I should take a photo of this. But then you're like, no, I just want to absorb this for myself. Do you have the awareness in the moment to kind of be like, no camera?
Yeah, definitely.
No paparazzi?
That's good. Sometimes, like I said, the camera just can't do a moment like that justice. Like, you have a life-changing experience, and you decide to yourself, you know what, I'm going to do something for myself. And even if that's just like buying a plane ticket to Greece with your friends and just hiking up a mountain, and you get to the top and there's a church there, and it's like, go to the church and say a prayer, and then you come out and you're overlooking the entirety of Athens. And like, you can go ahead and try and take a picture, but like, your eyes literally cannot fathom how that would make you like how you feel at that moment, being that you feel like, you feel like you've been holding your breath, and then you go up a mountain and you're able to breathe again, and you accomplish something, and it's like very, very personal, even with people around witnessing it, witnessing the same thing as you, but it's like different. Like, it's your own thing and that's it.
I get that. Thinking about it while you were talking, I feel that maybe it's if I take a picture, I know that I can reference it and go back to it at some point.
Right.
But if I just say, I'm just going to take this in as in, I'm more willing to surrender to the natural and just be here in the moment to kind of absorb what's going on. Yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Sometimes a picture won't, even for yourself, even if it's like you take a photo so that you can look back and remember it, that photo will never do what you saw justice, because it's just like so personal and so much like that moment at that time, and it can't be captured.
So I want to hear more about Denver being number one for you.
I just really like Denver. Like, I know, I went there, and I feel like there's sometimes like these trips you take that you're just like, this was such a fun trip. And that was a trip that was fun from the beginning to the end. And like, it was one of those things where, I pushed myself out of my comfort levels by trying to, I won't even say try. I accomplished it. I hiked up that mountain. I felt like I was going to die, but I did it, And like, I felt sick afterward, but I was like, that was great. Like, I actually was talking to my mom about this yesterday. I was just like, Francine, I climbed a mountain and saw a hidden lake, and I thought I was going to die, and I did it, and I would do it again.
And that's what it's supposed to be, right? That's what experiences are, right? Feeling like shit in the moment, but then you hit the peak and you're like, oh, like, this was fucking worth it.
Yeah.
And I didn't die.
Right, exactly. You're like, this was worth it. Like, the whole trip up, I'm like, everyone's been so supportive. And then you get to the top and you go, wow, I definitely am so glad that I did not like tap out and cry as I ran back to the car. I just did it. And it was great. And it was great because you got to do it with like your friends. And it was really cool.
Yeah. For me, I think that was my first experience, seeing a lake at the top of a mountain.
It's like the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah. It's humbling,
It really is.
Coming. And like a lot of it is, for me especially, is just, being Black and coming from Brooklyn to Flatbush, where we're not inclined to see these things. We're not, right. We're not raised to kind of go out and venture and be part of nature and have these experiences.
Yeah.
So, I'm having these first time experiences at the age of like 33 and 34, which is dope within itself. But then it's also just a perspective of like, there's so much we've been missing out on. There's so much
definitely
that we haven't been, just taking like going back to the idea of, I guess, risk or putting yourself out there more, challenges, just to kind of experience life a lot more. Like Erica and I went to a lake, or I think rather reservoir, maybe two or 3 months ago, and like I put my foot in the water in a lake for the first time ever. I've never done it before, and I'm like it's not a big deal. But it's big in the sense of just kind of feeling free, and connected with nature enough to kind of just have this experience.
Yeah, I feel like you're right. Like, a lot of people don't, especially when you grow up in like New York and you're like from Brooklyn or you're from Harlem, you don't really get to experience that to that, extent, because it's not really like forced on you. It's like, you live in a metropolis. Like, what do you need a mountain for? But like, that stuff is life changing. Like, it really opens you up to, you're like, what else can I do? What else should I do?
Right.
And
How
then you
much more
go,
beautiful is this world, right?
right. You're like, this is great. And this is in the country. What else is out there?
Right.
What else is in here? You know?
So I think this would be good to kind of transition and focus on, what it's like being a Black photographer, a Black woman photographer, anyone you look up to, any role models, not even famous, but any other photographers that you kind of look to for inspiration, or
So
whether it matters, whether it doesn't, maybe it doesn't matter at all.
it's weird for me because I think as far as looking at photos, I've never really like been able to kind of like narrow down, who inspires me a lot. But as far as like encouragement goes, I met this like amazing photographer named Charisse through my sister. They used to work at like the Gap together, and she's been somebody that like has been really encouraging to me when she noticed that I was like, trying to be more serious about photography. And she's like, your work is really good. I can't wait to see what else you do. And even like, right before everything shut down in New York, like we met up for a little bit and we talked about photography. And whenever she sees anything that, might be interesting to me, she reaches out and she tells me about it. And she's just been very like super encouraging. It's crazy. Like, sometimes you kind of doubt your abilities, especially when you aren't somebody that you're not like, famous, or you don't have a lot of like followers, because you kind of get wrapped up in that. And it's like, you shouldn't do it for those reasons. You should just do it because you enjoy it. And she's been somebody that kind of like has been very good about, telling me like, your stuff is good. Read this stuff about photography. You're doing great. Here's some camera advice. And she's like really great. And her and like Larry, like, I didn't really think about it like as much as I did in the last few weeks, but like being around Larry and seeing what he did with his camera and the pictures he took of the people he loved was like very inspiring. And sometimes you don't realize it takes years for something like that to hit you. And like, you come to like a realization, you go, oh, wow. Like Larry was always there taking photos. And I was talking to my mom about that the other day. I was like, I remember I was a kid. Larry took a picture of me like in my pajamas playing like mini golf in his kitchen.
That's cute.
And it's just like a picture he took, and it's not like in focus. It's like, it's blurry, but it's like a great photo of just like a kid having a really good time. And he took that picture, and I don't even have it, but I think about it and I go, I want to capture stuff like that. And that's what Larry did. That's what Charisse does. And so I don't really, have, like these big names to reference, but those two people have been like very much helped me realize how much I like what I like.
It's a nice full circle aspect, right?
Yeah.
Like looking back at the past and what kind of I use the word conditioned a lot, but what's kind of conditioned into you as a child, and then having this reawakening and reconnecting with yourself as a childhood and the things you loved as a child.
Yeah.
And then finding someone in the present who can kind of help you hone in on your skills and kind of give you additional encouragement.
Yeah. And like, Charisse is a few years younger than me. And she's worked for like Hot 97 and, has been able to like take those pictures. And she's like, she's like a young Black woman. She's out there doing her thing. And like Larry was like this old Black guy from the Bronx. And he was like, I'm gonna take my camera wherever I want to go. So it's like, that's really nice to see that and know that, there's people out there that look like you who do what you do, even if it's for fun, if it's for whatever reason. And now since, I've made more of an effort to like kind of stay on top of just doing like more photography stuff on social media, there's like a network of these brown photographers that are in the Bronx that go out of their way to support what you do and give you like compliments on your stuff and follow you, and it's really cool. Like it's amazing. Like I didn't know that these people were around, and now they're like constantly interacting with me online and saying like, yo, your stuff is really good, your stuff is really dope. And it's like it's cool.
That's dope. I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about like millennial support, right? Just
Yeah.
so many of us, to me, it matters that it's from the Bronx. It always matters that it's within the inner cities,
Yeah.
within these areas where they're not traditionally conditioned to be creative or tap into our passions and the things we
Right.
love. So it's just this awareness of I know what it's like. I know what it's like to kind of be steered off path. I know what it's like to have something you truly love, but not have the support to kind of flourish because, our parents aren't really going to allow that because
Right.
they have different philosophies on what life should be. Get a job, stick with that job, you have a family. Our
Right.
parents, for the most part, did the same work all their lives.
Yeah.
But we're young and we have access to so much. Like even when you're talking about having a separate social media account, like I think everyone should have like 4 or 5 different Instagram and Snapchat accounts because there's so much creativity. There's so much things
Yeah.
that we all love as individuals. There's all these different avenues to go into.
Yeah. You definitely shouldn't limit yourself.
Right. I wanted to do photography when I was younger too. I think most notably in high school because it was the first time I was going into Manhattan and going to your point of like the big buildings. And for me, it was just like this whole new experience because coming from Flatbush, well, what Flatbush used to be, there weren't really any tall skyscrapers or tall buildings with the exception of a few buildings in downtown Brooklyn,
Right.
Fulton Street. And going to Manhattan, I was just under the bridge the whole time. So it was suburban Brooklyn, train into massive Manhattan, and but I never went into it. I didn't have the income, and even if I did, the income was spent on like drinking and carpe diem, seize in the moment and just having fun.
Yeah.
So like I finally. And even I don't even like taking pictures. I've always been opposed to taking pictures or having people take pictures of me. Something psychological that I haven't really found the root cause of. But I started doing my Cliff Captures Clouds account earlier this year. Yeah, Triple C. And it's been fun just being able to tap into this passion that I've always had, but now it's just focused on something that I love. Like I've always loved the concept of clouds, and the visualization and the uniqueness, and they look like massive empires,
right?
And these beautiful things in the sky. But when you get there, there's nothing. It's just boring.
Yeah.
But just creating that account and having that side account to do that. And, I have a bunch of other side accounts also. Yeah. I probably have like 10 Instagram accounts.
Yeah, you should make as many as you want because you're right. Like there's no reason you should feel like you need to limit yourself. Why? When you can just keep tapping into things that make you happy and doing those things because they make you happy.
And then you get to cross-brand or cross-promote. Like people who love Cliff Captures Clouds might like professional quotes and some of the other stuff I'm working on. So, you have the opportunity to reach out and connect with, I think 4 billion people have the internet now. So
yeah,
they're out there. So, you go in and make the effort as best as you can.
Yeah. It's always going to be make a place for yourself and get comfortable and be happy about it.
Right.
No matter how big, no matter how small.
So you talked about Sharice kind of giving you tips and advice. How else do you hone and fine tune your skills as a photographer?
How else do I do this? I think it's a lot of being critical and taking criticism and not taking it personal if someone says, well, I think it would be better if it was this or whatever. I think it's like, it's partially that, and understanding like just because you went out, just because you took your camera out with the idea that you were going to go out and you were going to just shoot, doesn't mean that you're going to come back and have stuff that you enjoy. Like, you fail, you have another day to try again. Or maybe like that the thing that you thought you failed at, you give it some time and you go back and you go, oh, actually, I did like this. But I think it's, just doing it and not making excuses is what I've like come to really try and like ingrain in myself. It's like, you fail, you try again, you fail again, you try again, and you just keep doing it. And then, kind of like, I do spend a lot of time talking to my boyfriend about it, because he's been very supportive of me going out and taking pictures. He's like, if you're going to go out and take pictures, I'm going to go out and take pictures too. And he creates his own Instagram where he posts his own photography. And so it's like getting that support, but also being like, you got to take criticism, even if it's from yourself or it's from someone else. It's like, what could I have done better? Or what do you like about this picture? What don't you like about this picture?
Yeah, that's a great and positive perspective. Have you always kind of been like that? Like being able to use the word fail at something and just be like, all right, well, got to get over it? Or is it something that you've kind of worked on developing?
This is like something I've had to work on developing, because honestly, like, I feel like failure was something that I didn't even like to talk about when it came to myself, because, failure sometimes feels like the end all. And that doesn't mean that, it is the end all if you don't get up and try again, or if you decide like, you know what, I'm done. I'm tired of this. But it's just, you just have to, keep trekking, as they say. It's definitely something that I've reflected on a lot in the last like 3 or 4 years. What failure is actually, if it life ending that you failed? No. If you fail, does that mean that you can never try this exact thing again? Will you never get the same results of like the successes you had prior? And it's like, that's not what that means. You just try again, and you try again, and then you try again. But that's definitely is something that I had to come to terms with. Like, just because you fail doesn't mean that you are a failure. They're not synonymous,
Right. That's a perfect way to phrase it. Just because you fail doesn't mean you're a failure.
Yeah.
Has photography kind of been the main thing that helped change your perspective, or were you kind of already in that process and it brought, I guess, new experiences and understanding the separation between failure and failing?
I think that it's helped me with the process of understanding that, like, just because you didn't do a thing the way you wanted to doesn't mean that, you can't try it again. It's helped, but I was coming to that realization before, where even if it's like, failed relationships, failed friendships, like being unhappy in your job, it's like, what am I doing wrong? How can I fix it? And then realizing like, maybe if I make, a game plan and, write it out and figure it out, what parts about my life or my situation don't I like? Can I remove it? Can I fix it? Can I do something else? And in the last 3 years, I've been able to pretty much like, I don't know. I feel like I become more optimistic in some senses about, what an accomplishment is, and if I'm proud of myself. And photography was one of those things down the line that I realized that I was proud of. But before that, there were things that I don't think I was proud of that I am proud of now. Like that I'm like, I feel like I'm resilient, and that I bounce back and I learn from mistakes, my own mistakes, and make a plan to continue to be better. And so far I've been doing that. Like in the last like 2 or 3 years of my life, I feel like I've been very, very happy with how I have turned photography into more than a hobby now for myself, because I love it so much, but how I've handled relationships, how I've handled friendships, how I've handled like moving into a new job, moving into a new space, and being better at communicating what it is that I need or what it is that I want, and like making that stuff happen. But photography has definitely been one of those things that helped me realize that whatever path I'm on, I'm heading in the right direction.
It kind of feels like the necessary balance we all need. Like earlier on, rather, excuse me, you
Yeah.
talked about working, but now having time or making time rather to kind of tap into your hobbies,
Yeah.
and that's what life should be to an extent. You know, there should be work, and
Absolutely.
if work isn't your dream job or isn't exactly what you wish it was, it shouldn't define your your life
Right.
experience, right?
Right.
You go there, you do your hours, and then once that's done, you know, you put the time into the things you really love and care about. And like from everything you're saying, it helps reveal so much about who you are, who you can be. It helps you overcome personal obstacles and limitations you set on yourself.
Right.
And I mean, that's what creativity is. That's what our passions are. That they're here to allow us to see more of ourselves, allow us to, I mean, especially with, I mean, granted, all arts, but with photography, right? You said you take pictures of people in these happy and lovely, joyous moments. And for you, it says one thing. For me, it'll say something else, but you know, we'll all still see that happiness, but there'll
Yeah.
be so many different layers that allow anyone who looks at that picture to experience and kind of feel or be, it's good. I think it's humbling to know that people are happy, right?
Yeah.
Like we know the world is shit, right? We know
Yes,
things
we
are
do.
bad. So it's nice to be like, hey, you know what? They're still smiling through it all.
Right.
You know, maybe that's why you don't take sad pictures. Don't listen to me. Focus on the optimism.
Yeah. It's like it's just something about, seeing someone's like moment of happiness, or just like they just a clarity that comes with seeing somebody that you like love, that you like, that you respect, like look at you, see you taking the photo and going like this is good, or like I'm glad that she's taking this photo, or whatever whatever their reason is. It's like, I like capturing that. But yeah, like I feel like sometimes you don't realize how much the little things become the big things, and that's exactly what happened. Like it was a little thing to me, and then it became this big thing, and like every like day that passes, every week that passes, I just feel like I'm getting more in tune with myself through photography, and realizing how much of an impact it's made on my life, and how long I've been kind of like in love with the idea of photography or taking photos, because I've literally been keeping an actual record of it for 7 years, and it took like the last 2 or 3 or 4 years for me to go, oh, this is cool.
I like the humility. Oh, this is cool, but you know, it's more. It's always more than that.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you ever find yourself getting? I'm trying to equate writer's block to a writer, but with photography, where you're just
Yes.
like, I can't. This is all shit. I can't.
Yes.
I don't have the eye. I don't have the eye today. Is there a phrase for that in photography?
I don't I don't know. I've never heard it, but I've
But
definitely felt it. Photo block?
what photo?
What is
We'll
like
go with that.
like what do you like? It's not developing since it's photography. It's like I don't know. It's just not developing for me right
It's
now.
just not developed. I like that. It's not. I'm not discovering any angles currently.
Yeah, and there's no angles to discover right now. I don't know what's going on.
So, what's that process like for you, and How do you process through it? How do you transition through it and out of it?
I think sometimes you just gotta kind of like wait it out. Sometimes it feels like maybe there's a moment where it feels stagnant, where you feel like you're not taking good photos or there's nothing to take photos of that you like that's really like resonating with you. I feel like when that happens, it's either you have to kind of like, all right, let me give it a break, or it's like, where haven't you been yet? So since now, especially since it's harder to take pictures of people, it's like, where haven't I been that I would love to take a photo of? So it's like, all right, feeling a little stagnant, so let's go to a different borough. Can we venture outside the city? Is that a possibility? Like, on my walk home, have I seen anything different? And I think when you put it into that perspective, it's like less about fresh eyes and more about fresh places, you know? So it's like, can you change your walk home? Can you like take the railroad out a little bit further than you would, or take it anywhere because you haven't been on it and see something new? I think that's where it really would help like develop,
Right. And that kind of, I feel like that parallels the idea of just life, right? Like stepping out of your comfort and making an
Yeah.
effort to kind of venture out more. Like instead of stopping, getting off at your usual train station, get off, one stop earlier, one stop
Right.
after, and then walk home. Like you said, new path, new perspectives, new people kind of see new blocks, right? Like,
Exactly.
are they kids playing with the fire hydrant, down
Yeah.
this block? But yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah.
Like right
Um,
now, I feel like I'm not stagnant, especially with the great trip I took to Botanical Gardens. But like I know that I want to do before the summer's out. I want to go back to the Polo Grounds, and I want to go up to the 24th floor of Building 1 where I grew up, and I want to go to that terrace, and I want to take the same shot that I took like 7 years ago, where you can literally see the entire city. Like
is
I
that
want to.
realistic for you to do that?
Hell yes.
Okay.
The doors are never locked.
That is true, right?
You just walk right in. I could go back. Someone's going to recognize me. Let me in the building.
What if it becomes one of those moments where you don't need a photo and you're just like, holy shit, full circle life, right? Like, yeah,
Then I won't take it.
okay. Would you sounded disappointed. I'm sorry I brought up that idea.
No, 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 no. I'm not disappointed. If it becomes one of those moments where it's like, you're looking out on the city of like, the terrace that you've been going to since you were like a baby to like look out, and it's like too beautiful or too overwhelming for you to kind of take that photo because it's just, like, wow, look how far I've come, then I wouldn't take the photo. I wouldn't. I just like, keep the memory to myself.
I like that.
Yeah.
I respect it. So outside of photography, any other passions? Any other secret Instagram handles? You don't tell us the handles, but in
I
secret
wish I had.
Instagram side projects.
I wish I had some more secret Instagram handles. I mostly like, now because spending more time indoors, I've definitely been, watching a lot of movies, especially horror, because I love horror movies in general. Like that's my thing. But not just that, I've been cooking a lot more. I baked banana bread like 2 weeks ago and it did not taste bad. That was really cool. And just I haven't had a chance really to like officiate a ton of weddings. I was able to do one this year. But I really enjoy officiating weddings. Like that's fun to me. I think that's like a lot of fun.
And do you mostly officiate people you know? Have you had any experiences officiating the wedding of strangers?
I have not officiated weddings of strangers. Maybe, one day. I know people do it for like, fun, do it for like, to make money. That's never a bad thing. But like right now, I just really like taking, like, I really just like officiating weddings of people I know, especially when you get to kind of like see that love story develop. I feel like it's really personal and sweet. So yeah.
Is that a hint?
What?
Is that a hint?
What do you mean?
Like, are you talking about me and Erica?
Oh yeah, listen. If you want me,
I feel like we've already talked about that.
listen.
So.
I was speaking generally, but still, that would be an honor on my part. Like, I would love to do that, but it's just like very cool to see it from the beginning and like see where it goes and how it develops and how like sweet and wonderful it is. And it ties kind of into the photography aspect of it too, because like, you know, the first wedding I've officiated was some friends that I knew from Barnes and Noble, and I saw that like from when they first started dating and to where I officiated their wedding until they had their like first kid, and you know, still friends with them, and it's really nice. And then did the same thing for my sister, and it's just really nice, you know.
It's nice to be part of people's lives, and just, you know, all relationships on all levels can be very fickle and have tension and separation, but being part of the process and seeing, like you said, seeing love kind of blossom and evolve and last throughout everything, it's always a dope experience.
It really is. It's like very cool, like being able to, you know, take these people that you care about and go like, yeah, I'm gonna marry you guys, and then actually doing it is just like it's something that you always get to be a part of without it being like, you know, the nosy weird friend. It's like the friend that got us married. And then I think that's very cool.
So any words of advice for young future photographers?
Yes. Use what you have, whether it be a camera phone, whether it be an Instax camera, disposable camera. Use whatever you want to do whatever you have to do, and don't be shy about posting your stuff, and don't feel like you're not making an impact because you're not getting like the kind of notoriety that some people get. You just got to do what you enjoy and do what's fun and do what you love.
And on that note, I'd like to end this episode of the Live, Lift, Love podcast, PEDs, Positive and Enriching Discussions. I'm your host, Clifford Janice. You can find me on IG at Goltz Conditioning, and you can find me on Twitter at Goltz Conditioning. Tati, can you tell the people where they can find you?
You can find me at TatianaPhoto.me, photo spelled F-O-T-O, and I'm also on Instagram under the same name, Tatiana Photo.
You can listen to the Live, Lift, Love podcast on SoundCloud, Google Play, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, and YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and if you visit the Live, Lift, Love podcast on the Goltz Conditioning website, please be sure to leave a comment. Until next time, peace. You can say bye too if you want.
Bye.